is up, everybody? RandomRandomMan here, and I know it has been a while since my last video on the 2014 Oscars. It has also been way longer since I've posted an actual movie review. I intend to now start doing as many reviews as I can since more exciting movies are now being released. So I figured, why not start now? Which of course is why I am reviewing Transcendence, one of my most highly anticipated movies of this year, and there's definitely a lot to talk about with this movie. Here we go. Transcendence stars Johnny Depp, Rebecca Hall, Paul Bettany, Kate Mara, Cillian Murphy, and Morgan Freeman, and is also directed by cinematographer Wally Pfister, who shot many of Christopher Nolan's movies and even won an Oscar for Best Cinematography for Inception, which is also one of my all-time favorite movies. Now, this movie is about two married scientists, played by Johnny Depp and Rebecca Hall, who figure out a way to create super-intelligent AIs through computers. But before the idea is fully realized, Depp's character is shot by someone who is part of a group that does not like what is being done. But as Depp's character is dying, Hall's character and a friend, played by Paul Bettany, decide to hook up Depp to a computer to see if he can become the AI himself. But things go wrong soon after, as the AI now wants to control a lot of things from that point. This movie gave me a lot of high hopes towards it, as it stars a great cast, is directed by an Oscar-winning cinematographer, and has a really cool concept behind it as well. However, before I get on with talking about the movie, I have to bring up how this movie is being received. Now, as of now, Transcendence has a 44 out of 100 on Metacritic and a 20% on Rotten Tomatoes, as a lot of these reviews are pretty sour, yet there are some positive reviews that are also given as well. Box office wise, however, things aren't doing much better. Why bring the entire business up? Well, as I said before, this movie has a lot riding on it, and while it does intend to do a lot, it does not quite get there entirely, but not totally fail as well. Casting wise, it is such a breath of fresh air to see Johnny Depp without any white makeup or working with Tim Burton, as in this movie, he gives a great performance here, but only for the amount of time he is given on screen, and he is not given too much screen time either, as even before he is shot in the movie, there's not much for him to do. Rebecca Hall gives it her all here too. But like Depp, there was not much for her to do here either, as she is left out in the open when her husband is attacked, and it goes on like that for almost the entire running time. As for Kate Mara, Cillian Murphy, and Morgan Freeman, their characters were interesting too, but they were wasted as well, as there was not too much significance to be given to them until the movie's final act. Paul Bettany was the only huge standout for me, as his character seemed to be the most relatable to the reviewer, as he is presented to all of the things that are going on around him. Now, story-wise, this is the movie's biggest problem, and it shows up right from the start. The first half of this movie is generally interesting, though, and had me really invested in what was going on with the setup and what was happening around the world. But after the idea is established, the movie starts treading downhill as it tries to do too much all at one time, with one part being Depp's AI trying to essentially control the entire internet, and another part being muddled love and between Hall and Depp. And even though Depp is a supercomputer, the love story seems a little bit too convoluted for its own good. Now, more weaknesses start to show up with the movie when it gets to its final half hour or so, which leads to how the movie ended. And while I'm not going to spoil it here, I'll just say that I was not a huge fan of it, and it also shows how the movie began. And the movie starts off with the ending, and I don't think that was a good move, and it got me really confused on why it started like that in the first place, until the movie ended, of course. The ending is also messy in that the filmmakers probably did not know how to end the story, as the plot was already huge enough to fill up the entire movie that ran for 2 hours. Speaking of its running time, though I was not bothered by it too much, the movie felt a lot longer than 2 hours, especially towards the end for what I just mentioned beforehand. Aside from the story, there is a lot to like about Transcendence. these shots are very well done, as they are not done by Pfister himself, and they were done by someone who was pretty well experienced in knowing how to shoot great scenes in any movie. The music provided some subtle sense of atmosphere needed to make the movie more engaging, as I mentioned before. And the acting, while some of it I did not like, as I mentioned before, the acting here is definitely serviceable to the movie's own benefit, which Paul Bettany does give the best performance here, in my opinion. There is also action here, but there is only two big set pieces that happen across the entire movie, and they happen towards the film's final moments in the second half, but they do make things more exciting only briefly. And they show off special effects, but I think the special effects might have taken less time, like how the script was handled, and while they do look cool, they do not add much, like I said, with the entire action. Wally Pfister's a great visionary for Christopher Nolan, who also executively produced this motion picture with his wife Emma Thomas, but Pfister still has a long way to go for directing and is not off to a terrible start. Maybe if the writing had been more centered on the same concept on a smaller scale, or had been spread out towards future entries, it would have turned out better. However, despite this movie being terribly flawed in the writing and to an extent even character-wise, none of the actors should not be blamed entirely, and Transcendence is still a unique work of science fiction with a concept and its presentation just enough to make this movie enjoyable for me to warrant any value. As for the final verdict, I'm going to change up how I approach this, as I'm going to rate movies instead of out of 10, but out of 5 stars. Overall, I'm going to give Transcendence 3 out of 5 stars. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you later on the next movie review.